Hey everyone, and welcome to another short explainer video for some of the free clinician resources you can find on the Pain and Quality of Life Integrative Research Lab website. Here you'll see I've already navigated to pearlresearch.com, that's Pearl with an I, and across the top I've clicked on the clinician resources link, which will take you to the page with a growing list of free resources you're welcome to use in your own clinical practice. Today we're going to talk about the Neck Disability Index 5-item version, or the NDI-5, so I'm going to tap on that in the menu and get taken right down to that part of the page where it describes the tool. Here you can find a couple of things. First of all, you can learn about how it is that we created the NDI-5. Again, this was back in 2013 that we had this published, myself and my good friend Dr. Joy McDermott. And you can read all about how we developed it. In fact, this is a free open access paper, so knock yourselves out. In short, we were able to use rash analysis to shorten the tool from its original 10 items down to 5, for those of you who are familiar with the NDI-5. If you tap on the title here, you're going to get a copy of the NDI-5 in a PDF version. You can print this off and use this in your clinic if you wish. You'll see the 5 items that are remaining following the results of our analysis was person care, concentration, work, driving or riding in a vehicle, and that's one thing we changed. The original NDI has driving a vehicle. We recognize that not everybody drives, and so that item isn't always relevant, and recreation. You also notice that most of these are still scored out of 5, which is the way the NDI normally goes, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, depending on the response the person chooses. One of these, however, which has to do with the driving, is scored out of 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that was because one of the items just didn't fit well, so we removed it. You're welcome to print this off and use this in your clinic. Again, the score is out of 24. You can calculate a percentage, and if you want to be able to interpret your scores and you're familiar with the NDI disability levels from the original version, those also use percentages, so you can do the same thing here. Sum the scores up, convert it to a percentage, and you can interpret your patient's disability related to the neck in the same way that you would with the full version. However, we have gone one extra step further, as we tend to do. Going back to this paper, we, as I mentioned, did a rash analysis, which also allows us to take that overall score that you would calculate and convert it to a linear scale rather than an ordinal scale. Ordinal scales, as I'm sure some of you will remember from your education days, are ordered responses but are not necessarily mathematically meaningful. And so the distance in this case between a 0 and 1 is not necessarily the same as the distance between a 1 and a 2. Using rash-based analysis, we're allowed to actually transform those scores, and we can in fact get a linear score where the distance between 0 and 1 is mathematically the same as the distance between 1 and 2. If we go back to the lab's website, you'll see the next bullet down here is in fact an Android app that you're free to download and use. If you're using an Android-based smartphone, you can navigate right directly to the website. You can tap on the link that will download a little APK file to your phone. You can install that, though you'll need to make sure that you allow external or third-party apps to be installed. And I would certainly encourage you to only do that for this installation. Don't leave that service open, because it does make your phone vulnerable to malicious attacks. For those of you who don't have Android-based phones, you can still download this to a Windows machine, and you can run it through the BlueStacks Android emulator. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. Okay, and here I've got the BlueStacks Android emulator installed on my computer and open. And what I've done is I've navigated to the My Apps part of this application, and down the lower right-hand corner there's an option to install APK. That's that file you would have just downloaded from the lab's website. I've clicked on that, and I've navigated to my Downloads folder, and I've chosen the NDI-5 app. Now it shows up here as it just says Real Application. This is a little bit of sloppy application design. Keep in mind, we are not app designers. We do our best, so it's not that pretty. You'll see that the icons also are just the default icons for most of the apps we create. However, if you tap on it, it does still have functionality. Here's the NDI-5 application. You have two options here. You can either begin the survey, which would have a patient actually go through and choose their responses to each of the 5 items, or you can just jump right to inputting the scores if you've already had them complete, say for example the PDF, the paper version, and you've already summed the scores and you just need to enter them. So if I tap on Begin Survey, you'll see that it takes me through Person Care, where I can choose an option, and I can go all the way down through Concentration, Work, driving or riding in a vehicle, and then finally recreation. Now what it'll then do is it says, okay, you've scored 16. What we've done is we've taken that ordinal score of 16 and we've located it along this continuum from 0 to 24 of rash transformed linear scores. Now, it just so happens that in this case, an ordinal level score of 16 is the same as a linear level score of 16. But if we assume that on this scale, 5 points is an important change, and to be fair, we're not entirely confident that that's the case, but it seems reasonable. You may argue that even 2 or 3 points could be important, but let's, for the time being, we'll say 5 points, which is actually on the original NDI score. In this case, the patient would need to change from 16 down to a score of 7 for you to be confident that true change has occurred. And these are the ordinal level scores here. So once they get down to 7, you're confident that true change has occurred. I just want to show you how this works. If we go just directly to input scores, and let's imagine I had the patient complete it, and let's say they scored very high, a 24 in this case. What you're going to find is that a 5-point linear change really only requires a 3-point change of the ordinal raw score. And that's because change at the extreme ends of a scale are going to be more important than changes in the middle of a scale. And again, if you're interested in knowing why that is, you can go and read that NDI-5 paper, and you'll see what the transformation matrix looks like. But for now, it's a simple little scale, simple little tool here. If you want the application, it's free. It isn't pretty, but it does the trick. And if nothing else, you can feel free to print off that NDI-5 from the lab's website and consider using that either with or in place of the full NDI, and see if you like it any better. All for now.